that rather than be beholden to one particular sponsor per se, we are seeking funding from 5 different sources so that we can continue to stay as objective and apolitical and so on as possible. So that's project number 1. Do you want to say anything? I'm talking a lot.
No, you're fine.
I'm on a roll. So I'm just going to run through, in no particular order. I'm going to leave the big one that we're working on until last because that's probably going to get a lot of action happening. I know not many of you attended. I'm just going to see if any of you attended the sunrise yoga. It was insane. It was amazing, and to be down on the beach and to see the iconic Surfers Paradise Beach, and with the sunrises. Even though the sunrise didn't really turn on for us, but the sunrise and Luther who played the ditch and Ella Fence. Thank you, Sam, for recommending. She was awesome. Our local talent. I mean, seriously amazing. And then Emmanuel to do the yoga. This was spectacular.
It looked like the 3 of them it looked like it was a travelling artistic roadshow.
And they never met before, they never did. It was just incredible. So you want to think about that?
What we thought from that is, why does that need to be a one-off event? And something a little bit personal, that we're all a bit passionate about is, why do we bring in our Aboriginal community for one-off events? Why is that? If that's an integral part of who we are on our land, we need to bring that into the public eye more often. So we've approached Surfers Paradise Alliance. He's really keen. I'm meeting with him again next week, and we're going to see if this can be a continuation on Surfers Paradise Beach. So once a month we're going to do the yoga involving Aboriginal community, a local artist, and yoga on the beach. And one of the biggest things that came out of Big Blue Sky was mindfulness. That came out from speakers, that came out from the students, and a space where people can just get together in a really casual way. So with a once a month we'll invite the whole community. So, FSG, we want your help here to bring people down to the beach. We want tourists, we want business, we want students, and I just think it is, in a few months' time, this could be a real major talking point for Surfers Paradise. And again, it's rewriting the perception that we have of Surfers Paradise, and it's showcasing it in a completely different light. And after the yoga, we'll get some food trucks, or we've got all the local operators there too. And people can just sit on the beach and have a chat, and that's all it is. So that's one project that I'm 90% sure is going to commence in January.
And we'll make sure that there's the opportunity for those digital hashtag photos that go out to the world, with whatever the hashtag is. Surfers Paradise want it to say Surfers Paradise, we may want it to say Gold Coast, but whatever it is, that's going to go out.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's absolutely a fantastic project. I just think that's amazing. Does everybody think that's amazing?
Yeah, I do.
That's really something.
We decided that we may not do it at 4:30 a.m. Apart from this one who's up at that time every morning, that might be a little bit ambitious.
Yeah, no, it is.
Doesn't the sun come at 9?
At 9.
And can I just say that since I was there doing that yoga, and since then I've been going to Emmanuel. I wasn't doing yoga before.
That's my mum.
But it converted me. And since then I've been going yoga, Pilates, and I'm really into it.
See, healthy barrel.
Challenging.
And now she's sitting at
A healthy barrel.
One life.
So another project, David Martin is coming back in January. He's going to do an integral accounting audit of the city. This is an all-in accounting audit. It's going to take about 45 days. I've worked with David before, so I know how these things are done. Really, just to give you sort of what that means, because people go, how, I'm sure people are doing this, but if you're looking at a city with a very different lens, you're going to see very different things. And so essentially what that means is that we'll be looking at what we have in abundance, including abundant scarcity. And a lot of times what we have in abundance, particularly if we're residents, and you know this yourself, we step right over it. We don't even see it. And so if you look at some of the technologies that are hitting the high straps at the moment, like I'm going to use this example, Uber. We're not going to have a conversation about whether it's a shareable economy or not, because that's a different subject. But you know, if you look at empty space in a car and you go, we have an abundance of that. And then we also have, what do we have abundant scarcity of? So a complementary currency is where you meet an unmet need with an
Unfulfilled one.
yeah, whatever. And thank you, save me. And so, you know, we're really looking at how we can utilise the assets, and this includes people assets that are already there. When people say to me that it's too much money or it can't be done, I go, well, not if we keep looking at it that way. How do we change the way we look at it so that we can see it in a different way?
We go different.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of sort of off-site projects that are going to come from this. We're working with YP, Young Professionals, about utilising some aspect of the integral accounting audit to unleash some of the red tape around business. The best example I can give you very quickly is, does anyone know the background of Curitiba in Brazil, the city in Brazil, how they became one of the top cities in Brazil? Okay, so Curitiba in 1975, the mayor had a crisis of garbage waste. Too much population growth going through the roof. So he had in abundance garbage, he had in abundance people, he had in abundance people in favelas, street kids, all of that sort of stuff. They had food and so on in abundance because they're in a very agriculturally rich area. They had a good public transport system that wasn't being utilised. So in 1975, he put garbage, silver garbage containers at the front of all of the favelas in Brazil, and the kids were given a bus token for sorting garbage. And they were given a plastic token for just putting paper waste in, so having it be paper separate. Plastic token got them food, and the other one got them a bus. They also sort of changed this up. In 3 years, 100 schools participated. 200 tonnes of garbage were collected. This is in 3 years. Wow. 1.9 million textbooks were given out to school kids as a result of this. They saved 1,200 trees per whatever it was. I mean, the statistics are amazing. But this was the seed that started Curitiba's turnaround, and Curitiba, even to this day, because they still deploy this type of thinking, has a ×3 average income per population of any other city in Brazil. So we're doing an integral accounting audit, and so we're going to be really looking for, what we're stepping over and what we can utilise, and how we can and how we can really enhance without adding, without going, this is going to cost millions, et cetera, et cetera. So that's happening in January. We have another project that came out of Provisioning the Impossible, which is about looking to place common spaces. And let's just say, for example, the spit. Being delicate here, common spaces on the blockchain. To short circuit this whole conversation, essentially that means that by putting it on the blockchain, you make it 100% transparent. You remove any opportunity for anyone to hijack that. So no one party can take control without everybody knowing what's going on. There's a lot of movement around the world. Greece is very actively looking at putting public parks and so on the blockchain. So we're really looking at having that be something that comes out of the Gold Coast as well. That's kind of like a Wikipedia project. It's not. It'll be open source and very much about people that really care about creating a platform that can be used for common spaces globally. That's a project. Very much working with Matt Desmere on the sort of making sure that we have a single repository or a place for businesses and entrepreneurial events and news and et cetera, I want to know that in 5 years' time, when someone Googles entrepreneurialism and innovation and tech startups in Australia, they land on the Gold Coast. You know, like that's.
Yeah, you need to write that goal on
It's a
paper.
moonshot.
And we're going to be working really closely with economic development on this, on
Yeah.
how we
Yeah.
can create
And,
this.
and you know, Matt's done this, so, and he's just, you know, he's rolling out the red carpet for us to work with him on that. So that's a project. Just to be clear, you know, everything that we're doing here is about collaboration. So it's not about different parties bidding. It's how do we come together and actually have that happen? Because if we have that happen, everybody wins. Everybody. That's another one. Having the city be carbon neutral by 2025 and saving a shitload of money in the process. That's a big project. I was the one that added the saving a shitload of money in the process because I know that we're never going to get it across the line unless we look at it that way.
Yeah.
So there's a team, Jane's working on that with Matt Dyson from Carbon Reduction Institute, who's been on the emails today.
Sorry, that actually falls in line with the UN, with their declaration of people's agenda to make the world carbon neutral by 2030.
Yep, right out.
193 countries have signed, including Australia.
Yeah.
So,
Fantastic.
huge.
So we might have to up our aspirations on that one. Obviously, working on the interrelationship between the cities of Las Vegas and the Gold Coast. Already, I have heard that the mayor of Las Vegas is not going to say yes to that until we fly planes direct from Brisbane. She said Brisbane to Las Vegas, but anyway, we're working on that. We're working on the partnership between all the Silicon Beaches. You know, Kyle has poured his lifeblood into Silicon Beach, Gold Coast, and we want to keep that alive. And so we're supporting him on making that come back to life with events in the new year. But also, you know, it's Silicon Beach. It's a liaison with the Silicon Beaches. Yeah. So Bournemouth, Los Angeles. And really the idea of this is just so that there is the opportunity for more collaboration, more connection, let everybody win. The annual Big Blue Sky event, yeah.
We've got a date, didn't we?
The 6th of October
6th
is
of October.
is the proposed date, unless you can tell us why that's not a good idea. In other words, unless there is a compelling reason.
5th of November was pretty good.
Sorry?
Remember
Oh, I
5th of
know,
November.
but it's not
The 5th
cool
of
for
November,
universities,
yeah.
and it's
Oh.
not cool
Yeah,
for
I reckon
students.
October's
And
no.
Yeah, so we looked at this, so this is before the car racing thingamajiggle. It's still on the Thursday. Sorry, okay, that thing.
Yeah.
You'll be working with Tomato.
It's not. We've still got it on a Thursday. We're actually, you know, people said you could do this in 2 days. There's actually some real value of coming together for a hard-working day and then having kind of like a breathing day afterwards. So we're still looking at having the main event be the main event. Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about your?
Yeah, certainly. Project 12, if you've already taken a look at the notes, it's Community Concepts is what it's called. And what we're doing is we're holding sporting events and using that as fundraisers to raise money to put back into families who can't afford to put their family members into sporting activities. So it's, as you phrased it, it's making sure no one gets left behind in the whole cycle of being active.
Looking after our community.
Yep, that's it. My co-director partner here, Kathy. She's in the circus world, in the gymnastics world. So what we want to do is to take pop-up circus skills out to the regional areas, take them to Aboriginal communities throughout the state, and just get to where people haven't got access to that type of activities.
I can help you with that because I've got a lot of access to regional
Oh,
communities.
fabulous.
Yep,
Yeah.
Queensland. So.
Excellent.
Yeah. And so you've got an
Oh,
event.
yeah. I've got an event on the 13th of December. We've got it's called the GC50. It's a 50-kilometre.
It'll be
There we go.
50 metre.
50-kilometre, 30-kilometre and 15-kilometre road run with a 5-kilometre and 1-kilometre beach run. So that's happening down at the just near the Currawong Surf Club. We've got a pop-up circus. We've got face painting. We've got.
Have you got flyers for that?
Yeah, we've got flyers. I can bring them in and get everyone some. So we're using that as a fundraising activity as well. We've already got about 800 entrants happening right across the board. So 92.5 Gold FM's coming down there, and the Spy Reverend's actually running the 50-kilometre run. And on the air, he's going to be challenging a few of his celebrity mates to come run with him. So that'd be good to get some of the celebrities on board to expose the race. So that's our first big fundraising event. Next year I've got a 10-kilometre ocean swim happening in May. And we're looking at putting on a 30 and 60k bike ride out of Griffith University, and there's more to come. So, yep, it's all
One of the other offshoots of the integral accounting audit is we're already in conversation with the wonderful people at the Commonwealth Games Sustainability and Legacy about how we can be sure to utilise spaces, people and so on. So that comes back to that integral accounting view. The assets that are already there and so on that can be used and enhanced without any large capital costing and so on. So that. Matt Dyson from Carbon Reduction Institute, I had the email again from him today, is doing a full-on integral accounting, full-on audit of the carbon cost of Big Blue Sky. We will be working with him on an ongoing basis to ensure that we walk our talk. Lou, do you want to speak about the digital?
Yeah, so one of being from the creative space, creative agency space, and I've spoken to economic development about this, is the Gold Coast doesn't have a very loud voice when it comes to creative advertising agencies. But we get a little bit lost to Brisbane and Sydney, and a lot of Gold Coast companies are using Brisbane and Sydney agencies for their work, and I think that's sort of our own issue because we don't collaborate, we don't work together. So what we're going to do as part of Silicon Beach is bring the creative spaces together to actually talk to each other and work together, but also look at how we can create a one creative voice in that space so that we're changing the perception of that industry, because it's a big industry, and as Matt was here from Bournemouth, that it's quite incredible what they turned around. Like, people think of Bournemouth now as, that's where you go and get creative done. That's where you go. Big companies from London asking Bournemouth agencies to pitch for big accounts. That was not happening 4 years ago at all. So it is possible, and there's some really amazing talent here, but I think that's not anyone's issue but the industry's issue, and we've got to get over that and work together, and so we're going to be doing that in the new year.
And a very practical example we were talking about on Monday was they've just now put out the big digital pitch for
Commonwealth Games, yeah.
And so the tragedy is that that's probably going to go to some other agency a long, far away that with a big, huge budget and all of that sort of stuff. And so what I said to Lou, how do you have that? How do you bring, because the talent's here, it's just that it's probably not under the same roof.
Well, it's also too, you've got to collaborate because, part of, just to give you an example, part of the first part of that tender pitch is you must have worked on either a major sporting event, a major destinational campaign. Those are the two major things.
So it's green.
Pardon?
So it's green here.
Well, it's like, so it's like if you haven't done that, don't pitch.
It's here. I mean,
yeah.
these two people have done it.
But because we have had events here, but most of those events have been done by the agencies.
Right.
So it's like, how do we come together and go, well, we've got those skills, you've got those skills, we've done this a lot with online. How do you come together and do that and pitch collectively? But I think we've all got to get out of our own way, our own little competitive egos, to be able to do that and go, you know what, you're better at that part, let's do that together. So that's one thing I think we've really got to work to keep that money, because it's the economy. You can grow. We're only a tiny little minute industry at the moment, but we've got a really big opportunity to grow that, but we've got to get the work that's based here in order to do that.
IT Forum/PIC has that model, Productive ICT, of where it's member based and really wants even some of the big players on board with Telstra. because they see the advantage of being part of IT Forum and also Productive ICT. So where we've done, I think, pretty good in, I think it's been 2 years with Productive ICT, of starting to get that traction, and we put together some tenders especially for the smaller IT organizations to come on board that they can be competitive. And even with the Commonwealth Games, working with Major Events International coming from the UK, it's provided opportunities to educate the smaller IT companies to position them and how to pitch for, and the Major Events International, they've been part of Com Games over in London and Glasgow, and they're doing Rio for the Olympic Games, that they have that experience, but they also know that there's small organizations here that don't have that capacity.
Yes.
Whether it be in security or IT or catering and stuff like that. So, we have that model.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So we'll have a chat.
Yeah, no, that'd be great, because, it's all there. It's just the coordination and collaboration and working together. And so, yeah. So before I go on to the last project, has anyone else got anything that's emerged that they want to speak about that we don't know about? Anything in brewing, even sideline that's not, just something that happened on?
That's not actually my project, but I am going tomorrow. Some of you may know about it, the GC 2018. It's about the Commonwealth Games, one that's at the Arts Centre. Yeah. I just thought that's a good one for that, getting together and collaborating. If anyone's interested in going to that one.
Yeah.
What time is that?
I think I mentioned the
4
singularity
till 6 at the Arts
Yeah,
Centre.
please. So 4 o'clock at the 4 p.m. It's the dreaming session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought just another opportunity to...
Yeah.
Where was that at the time? Just out of interest.
Sorry?
Where was that
How
at?
you sign up?
Facebook.
It's on Facebook and it's
Yeah.
through the
Got sent to me by
If you
somebody else
email me,
though,
Chris,
but
if
that's
you
the only
email
reason
me,
I
I'll
know.
forward it to you.
Oh, I'm going at 4 o'clock.
No, you just go. Okay, great.
Show up. I
Clarence.
was intrigued by it.
Yeah, Clarence.
Yeah, well, I spoke to Christine, and we're trying to see whether we can actually organize another global impact competition for Singularity University, where we select the person in Australia with the best idea to impact the life of 1 billion people within 10 years, send it to NASA for 3 months, and they work on the project and come back here. And and we're trying to basically sort it out and see whether we can get a competition running next year, but we couldn't do it this year.
Yeah, I mean, I love this. Any of you don't know Singularity University, it's not a traditional university. It's kind of like if you want to go and hang out with people who are really at the edge of thinking on the planet, literally, you go and spend 10 weeks in Silicon Valley and you hang out with those guys. But the entry point to get to them is that you've got to demonstrate, in the Australian sort of thing, you've got to demonstrate that you can affect 1 million lives in Australia within the next 5 years. And that's how you enter. And if what I'd love to see, I think it's a great thing that we could get started, is if we could create that competition, the actual entry point is 40 grand that goes to Singularity University. Once you are accepted, if you're accepted into that, they cover all your expenses.
Yeah, except your flights, your room and board at NASA for 3 months, and meeting people like Steve Wozniak and stuff like that.
Well, you're hanging out with,
and the opportunity to work on a project that will impact the life of 1 billion people. So I think we ran it for about 2 years on the Gold Coast. Actually, we had the commander of the U.S. Air Force drone actually spoke at the opening. But unfortunately, like we said, we have very little visibility from the press and so on.
Sorry.
So we had the commander from the US, whatever,
Air Force
here on the
drones, yeah.
Gold Coast speaking, and who knew about it?
It was here for a week. And then last year we had the Chief Impact Officer of Singularity. And the winner last year we were co-sponsored by Tucker Foundation, so it had to be in the area of environment, clean energy, and so on. And the winner was a lady from Sydney doing a PhD in nanotechnology and nanomedicine in Oxford. But her idea was how to plant 1 billion trees using drones. And the company has been launched now called Biocarbon Engineering. It's doing a project right now in South Africa.
So yeah, that's something that we'd really like to get behind. I'd love to see that. Actually, I'd like to go.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think Dion was going to say something.
Yeah.
After my experience of going through the event with everybody, and knowing what we went through with funding prior to it,
Yeah.
and the thing that occurred to me after was, why aren't we crowdfunding this? And then I met
Dion.
Dion.
Well, we did. Dion and I did have a conversation 5 weeks out.
So does that mean that could be a significantly strong partner for us in the time going ahead? Because we had the time to go ahead.
Yes.
Because you two impulsive ladies just went, let's go for this date. But now you have the time to plan. Is that not?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Totally.
it's the same. And it's the same thing with the various projects in the upcoming year. We're just experimenting. Even experimenting with sponsoring the IT Forum event. We're at 320% for next week's event, and it's just putting that to the crowd to see who wants to come in, not only locally but nationally, and who knows internationally if we can attract of getting more people to look here. I mean, it's still not up to us as iPledge to promote that, but collectively with everybody's lists and creating that momentum, you never know what can happen.
Because I crowdfunded a guy to get a pair of thongs.
Oh, okay.
So everyone's going to dig in on the environment. He
so
got those
exactly.
thongs. Yes, he did.
You wouldn't just go buy me a pair of them.
So, has anyone else got anything? Yes, Craig.
Just some feedback from the schools.
Yes.
Following up, they, of the ones I've spoken to, loved it. Had some good feedback, mainly all very positive. A couple of, perhaps ideas about next year about doing some things differently. And I also met up with the guys from FSG.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I'm talking to them about mine and their commitment to being involved again next year, and how we might on some. I know we haven't done it yet with you, but toss around some ideas about things we can do differently.
More time. Again, it was
More time, but even broadening rather than just the school student aspect, make the youth aspect. And they could go to apprentices and students and kids out of the school system as well. Disengaged kids and all sorts of things, and we can reach those through FSG. So broaden the entire demographic of that youth pathway.
On that spot, I was just wondering, are there any efforts in trying to breach that and bring the senior citizens?
Yeah, no, that was definitely,
Because,
it was on my radar, and and I was in conversation with somebody, and it just...
Because I gave a talk to the Australian retired pensioners or whatever, and on TED, and I was surprised that, they're really, really, really keen on it, and they're the ones that need the most help, whereas kids don't need it.
And so next, now that we've got a little bit of a name and a reputation, it probably won't be such hard work, because we do want to have all levels of community represented and so on and so forth. It was just that we really had a limited capacity. And Lou worked tirelessly on these schools. Totally carried on.
these guys did it.
Sorry? And Libby.
Oh, Libby's just.
So, anyone else before we go? Yes? Yes.
Well, my background is that I'm an engineer, an osteopath, naturopath, homeopath, and I was in retail for quite a few years. Water skiing Australian Championships forever. And I think what you're doing is great for the community. We used to have meetings every morning, every Monday morning, when I was the head of the display of David Jones, all the stores. And we'd think up something completely different. And that's what I think you need for here. What you're doing is great for the community, and they're all going to have a good time, but it's all been done. You're coming up with all sorts of things which are great, but they've been done. I've got a design. What if the Gold Coast was noted for having an 800km/h very fast train, magnetic levitating train, running from here to Sydney, Melbourne, 10 minutes to Brisbane, etc., etc. I've got a patent design of that train that's been viewed by the top engineers in Siemens in Germany, and they were going to do it. But they'd spent €1 billion on their train, so they couldn't get involved. Also, Siemens that make your trams here, they had it for 7 months, and they were going to do it, but they're sticking with heavy transport. But commercial aircraft that fly to and from all over the world are now 20% Kevlar. My whole train is Kevlar. It's 5 to 7 metres above the ground. You don't have to change the contours of the ground, the earth. You don't need stoplights. You don't need anything crossing. Stock can cross underneath it. etc. There's an article going in the paper at Tweed Heads on Monday. And if you want the Gold Coast to be noted for something, it could be noted for a very fast train to and from every part of Australia, and then every part of the world, because eventually my son's an electrical engineer with Qantas, and he showed me something 7 years ago where we will eventually travel from continent to continent underwater 50 metres below the surface of the water at 3,400 kilometres an hour in a vacuum. My train is perfect, it's round, fits straight into a tunnel, and now they're talking about trains doing the same thing at 34,000 kilometres an hour. So, you know, you're looking at something here that I can show you if we had a DVD player that would make the Gold Coast absolutely fantastic, because everybody would talk about it all over the world. And the engineers just in above Newcastle had a look at it 7 years ago. I've had it since 2000. And they blew them away. And I called it KISS Transport, keep it simple, stupid, because when you design something, it has to be simple to be great. If you design something with lots of moving parts and all sorts of things, it never ever gets off the ground. Mine is completely simple. It has the rails in the side, and the reason I did that, and I worked for it in an aircraft company when I first left school, is that the air can get underneath the train and over the top and down the sides. Whereas trains of today, and I live in a boat in France, and I travel on the GTV, which is 600 kilometres an hour, but it fell over, and I'm travelling 250 kilometres an hour now, and they all sit on something. The air gets built up in front of them, and so it can't go any faster than 600 kilometres an hour. So my train will do whatever speed you want it to do. So just that
what's your point?
What I want to do, I'm trying to get you to start thinking out of the square.
That's what we do.
Well, not with what I do.
Well, I disagree. With respect, I disagree. Exactly what the girls here are taking a very strong leadership role with what Big Blue Sky is doing. Now, it's about establishing people with, obviously everyone in this room has a vested interest of the technology, the future, the capacity for everyone as an individual to think on a higher plane. With what you're obviously thinking on a higher plane, but you've got a very big blue sky concept and a very expensive big blue sky concept. So which takes, if you try to put anything through the Gold Coast City Council, they're pretty limited in their thinking. So the process of what we're talking about is to inspire, and little fish are sweet. And I'm just saying, as we're going forward, one of the things I just wanted to sort of add to what you're doing is it's like, one of the things that I picked up from the Big Blue Sky was there's a need to have regular meetings that are fun, that get people of like mind together to share their vision. There's a need for more co-workspaces, creative, entrepreneurial, integral sort of spaces where people can start up and work with other creative minds together well, with little cost, which also is something that we need to inspire the Gold Coast City Council to accept, which is a real issue at this time.
Can I say that you and they are?
Great. I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying it's a process. It's a process, and like I know people that have got shared workspaces that have been given show cause notices for a $200,000 fine because they're helping local initiatives in the surf industry to show their thing. So there is a need for an acceptance and an acceptance in the culture within the city, and which is what you're sort of taking the lead for. So what I'm just sort of thinking towards is, like, I was part of the group, or am part of the group, that's looking at the spit as a common, and to looking at the concept of blockchain and technology to make a transparent, what was the term you used, which was beautiful? Uncorruptible process of communicating, which involves everyone in this city as a common. And the key words are everyone wins. So, you know, we're all here, and what you were offering is gold, you know, 2030, yeah.
No.
Yeah, okay, but it's also gold. It's like your passion, but your passion, your drive is what's gold. You know what I mean? So what we're just saying, what I'm taking from this is like, we are a club. When do we meet next?
So there's an opportunity. People love this is the opportunity. opportunity.
We want to get the Gold Coast to go forward and be known throughout the world for something.
So when do we meet next? Okay. How do we put the structure together?
James, so if anyone is interested in working with or helping James or whatever, you know, that's part of what we do.
James, who have you approached?
I've approached 3 people for 15 years. I've had this paper for 15 years already.
But a government, so this is a federal government.
The German and Japanese technology. It's a goer, it will work. But all I need to do is get a small amount of funding, which you might think is a lot of money, $3 to $5 million, to build a prototype and do the testing. And the CEO of the Hong Kong Bank has valued my patent at $100 million once that's done.
So this is, I mean, I don't know, but I see this as a federal.
Well, thanks. So we know about your project, James, and I think that's really important. We add that to the mix. And so if anyone wants to get behind that, there you go. And if we can help in any way, then we'll do what we can to have that happen. So the last, anyone else got a project that we need to hear about? Stephen? Yes, of course, Stephen. Go. Corey, give me a wine.
Pouring a bottle of wine.
The lady here. Any other ladies?
Stephen, you have the floor.
I'm just in the middle of pouring wine for ladies. Well, I mean, one of the things that, there's a number of things, but one of the things that seems quite relevant to today's topic is a little project that we're putting together for 2018, which is it's an international garden festival. It's a 6-month event. It's an international expo that's never been held in the Southern Hemisphere before. It's been held since 1948 all over the world except for the Southern Hemisphere. So we secured the rights to hold this in the Commonwealth Games year. Its main 3 themes are innovation, celebration, collaboration. So it also is proposed to be the location for the Centre of Sustainability for the Gold Coast, and it will include 40 countries coming to town to build pavilions and gardens around this topic. So as well as a mothership that would be the Centre for Sustainability, then each country will be asked to build a pavilion that is their response to what sustainability means for them, which is everything from renewable energy, water recycling, food security, food quality, anything to do with the environment, and renewable anything. So part of the AIPH, which is the international organisation that sanctions the events, they have a subset of their organisation which is called the Green City Council. So the Green City Council has been going around the world promoting the concept of being off-grid, sustainable as a city, and they have a whole audit process, not dissimilar to the integral auditing, but more from a city-wide perspective on sustainability. And so they have measures of how to progressively move towards a more sustainable city. So we've been talking about obviously integrating that as part of the journey for the next 2.5 years to get to it's called Australis as an event. But it's also the whole concept of the ALPH and what they try and do globally is to inspire cities to look to the future in what they themselves are aspiring to. So it's not about just holding an event, it's about holding an expo that looks to take the city on a journey of how do we get to where we want to go from an off-grid sustainability point of view. So that's a little thing that's coming up that we're working on many different fronts with all levels of government.
At our next event, because I've heard you've got an amazing...
The presentation is...
At our next event here, we'll arrange, we'll have AD, and can you show that?
Going forward, which makes you a fucking and I'm going to cut this back. Please don't sink back.
Yeah. No, she's shy, I bet.
vehicles through these techie guys that have got the scope to inspire the city to live and think on a higher plane. That's what it's about. So